the bride who vanished. The church bells rang softly through the quiet town as guests filled every seat, smiling and whispering with excitement. White flowers decorated every corner, and sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows. Everyone was waiting for one person, the bride, Emily Carter. She was known throughout the town as kind, intelligent, and full of life. She had spent months preparing for this day. She had chosen every flower herself, written every invitation by hand, and dreamed of this wedding since childhood. Her fiancé, Daniel, stood at the altar, nervously checking his watch. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The music stopped. Guests began exchanging worried looks. Emily never arrived. At first, everyone assumed she had been delayed. But when her parents reached the bridal suite, they found the room completely empty. Her wedding dress was gone. Her bouquet lay on the floor, and resting on the mirror was a single envelope with only one word written across it. "Forgive me." No explanation. No signature. No clue where she had gone. Police searched the forests, rivers, nearby cities, train stations, and airports. Volunteers searched day and night. News reporters covered the mysterious disappearance for weeks. Nothing. It was as if Emily had vanished into thin air. Months became years. Without answers, the investigation slowly faded. Daniel never married again. Instead, he opened a small cafe near the old church where they were supposed to begin their life together. Every morning, he unlocked the front door, served coffee with a smile, and quietly lived with the question that had haunted him for 10 years. Why did Emily leave? Every anniversary of the wedding that never happened, he placed fresh white lilies on the empty church steps. Some people pitied him. Others whispered that perhaps Emily had simply stopped loving him. Daniel never believed that. He always felt there was something she had wanted to tell him. Something she never had the chance to say. Exactly 10 years after the wedding, on a rainy afternoon, the cafe door opened. A woman entered wearing a long gray coat. She looked to be around 60 years old. She ordered a cup of tea, but barely touched it. Instead, she quietly watched Daniel from across the room. When the last customer left, she stood, walked toward him, and placed something on the counter. It was Emily's wedding ring. Daniel froze. His hands began to shake. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. The woman looked at him with sadness. "I've been searching for you for 10 years. Daniel could barely breathe. The woman introduced herself as Margaret. 10 years earlier, she had worked as a nurse in another city. On the morning of the wedding, Emily had arrived alone at the hospital. She was terrified. She begged the staff not to contact anyone. Margaret had been the nurse assigned to care for her. Daniel stared in disbelief. What happened? Margaret took a deep breath. Emily discovered a secret just hours before the wedding. The cafe fell completely silent. Margaret explained that while collecting a family heirloom from her late grandfather's attic the night before the ceremony, Emily had discovered an old metal box hidden beneath loose floorboards. Inside were faded letters, newspaper clippings, and photographs. The documents revealed that Emily's biological father was not the man who had raised her. Worse still, Daniel's late father had once been involved in the same family. Old records suggested that Emily and Daniel might be closely related through a hidden adoption scandal decades earlier. Emily was horrified. She refused to risk marrying Daniel until the truth could be proven. Before she could tell anyone, panic overwhelmed her. She ran. The hospital arranged emergency testing, but in those days the process was slow. Emily refused to contact Daniel until she knew the truth. Days later, before the results arrived, tragedy struck. The bus carrying Emily to another city was caught in a devastating landslide during a violent storm. Many passengers survived. Several did not. Among the confusion, Emily suffered a serious head injury. When she finally woke weeks later, she remembered almost nothing. No family, no hometown, not even her own name. Margaret visited her often. Emily slowly rebuilt her life under medical care. Years passed. Although pieces of memory returned, the most important ones remained missing. Only recently had a familiar melody played in a supermarket triggered flashes of her past. A church, white flowers, a man smiling, a wedding ring. She remembered Daniel. By the time Margaret located the hospital records and tracked Daniel down, Emily had already passed away after a long illness. Before she died, she handed Margaret the wedding ring. "If you ever find him," Emily whispered, "tell him I never stopped loving him." Daniel closed his eyes. Tears rolled silently down his face. Margaret handed him one final envelope. Inside was the DNA report completed shortly after Emily disappeared. The result was clear. Emily and Daniel were not biologically related. The old documents had been based on false assumptions created by an administrative mistake decades earlier. The wedding could have happened. Their love had been real all along. Daniel stared at the report for a long time. Years of pain had come from a misunderstanding no one had been able to correct in time. The following Sunday, Daniel walked to the old church carrying 2 white roses. He placed one beside Emily's name engraved on a small memorial stone. The second remained in his hand. Looking toward the sky, he smiled through tears. "I waited," he whispered, "and now, I finally know why." From that day forward, Daniel kept Emily's wedding ring beside the cafe register. Whenever customers asked about it, he simply smiled. "Some love stories don't end at the altar," he would say. "Sometimes they spend years finding the truth." And every year, on the anniversary of the wedding that never was, Daniel placed fresh white lilies at the church door, not with regret anymore, but with peace. Because the greatest mystery of his life had finally been solved. Sometimes the deepest love is not measured by the years people spend together. Sometimes it is measured by the years they never stop believing.